Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party Network. Every day on the network we have new episodes and shows dropping from Nerd Nuptial to Great Shot Kid and all the rest, so be sure to subscribe to our master feed on iTunes. And if you're listening and subscribe to Filibuster, be sure to leave us a review and a star rating. It really helps. Well, as the song goes, it takes two to make a thing go right, so today I'm joined by the Wasp to my Ant-Man, Dallas King. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. I'm the Wasp. It's about damn time.
Yeah, absolutely. We've banged and droned on about it enough times, so if we didn't like the film and felt it's been overhyped, we've only got ourselves to blame for that.
No, we don't. I blame A, Marvel, B, Disney, and C, the World Cup.
Exactly.
Maybe D, The Incredibles 2, which is possibly another reason why it was pushed back, since they're both owned by the same company and they didn't want to devour their own box office, but yeah.
Well,
so apart from those four people, yeah, I've only got myself to blame.
Exactly. Since then, I think that Fox has officially taken over by Disney, so we'll have more of that fun to look forward to in the coming years, with every week a different Disney movie to fight out amongst themselves or cannibalize the other one. It's just going to be ridiculous.
Is this the point when the alien queen becomes a Disney princess? Or...
I know, I've always subscribed to that, and I would class Alien Ripley as an unofficial Disney princess as well. I want to see little kind of, what's called like bear-like creatures in the Disney shop of Ellen Ripley. I'd love to see something like that.
Yeah, actually, speaking of those, finally I've just seen the trailer for, what was it, Wreck-It Ralph 2?
Yeah, he breaks the internet.
And I mean, I know I said, I think when we talked about Ready Player One, that hats off to the licensing person who had to basically sign off every single pop culture reference in Ready Player One, but I think we found someone who's had an even harder job, and that's the person working on Wreck-It Ralph 2, because I mean there's so many websites and so many properties. I mean, true, I mean they probably are all actually owned by Disney now, but still, I mean the amount of stuff that's in that film is just incredible.
Yeah, I did see the trailer briefly yesterday. I went to see a film and it was there, and I was like, oh, I forgot that film was happening, and I never realised it was going to be about him going into the internet, but I wasn't paying enough attention. It was just sort of on. I was like, oh, that's the Wreck-It Ralph trailer, and then it kind of passed by, so I will definitely have to give it a keener watch.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those ones that have multiple viewings where you can just pause every single frame and see something that you're like, oh, how the hell did they manage to get that in there as well?
I know, so it'll be quite interesting. So obviously, I think we both probably saw the trailer while watching the same movie, but what have you as always, what have you watched in the past week since we last spoke?
It was finally got to see Ant-Man and the Wasp, and at the weekend I managed to catch up with Teen Titans Go to the Movies, which is something
I've seen that too,
also had basically completely flown in under the radar, and then I started to hear a bit of buzz about it on Twitter and people saying that it was really funny, unexpected, and I mean I'd never seen any of the TV show, and I was just thought, oh okay, well I'll give it a go, and for me, I came out of it thinking it was probably the best DC movie since the days of Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, I went to see it yesterday. I was hungover, and there was me, one other older person, and a parents and their son went to see Teen Titans. This was like 10:40 in the morning screening, while my girlfriend went to see Mamma Mia, and I had never also seen the TV series either. It kind of passed me by, but I was just like, you're at that stage now of the summer where you're like, I'm running out of films. Like the multiplexes aren't really kind of replenishing with much new. It's still kind of, there's still things like Jurassic World holding on, and we've got Incredibles and now Ant-Man. It's like Teen Titans, yeah, sure, I'll give it a go. And I wouldn't go as far as saying it's probably the best since Nolan. I do think I wasn't a big fan of Man of Steel really, but I think it had enough that it just tips maybe Teen Titans Go, and maybe Wonder Woman does tip it as well. But I found it to be highly amusing, some really good jokes in there, and I think I had a certainly nice thing to say about kind of streaming services and all that kind of stuff dominating our minds and superhero fatigue in a way. I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, no, I thought it had some excellent jokes. I mean, for anyone who is unaware of the film, it's a group of lesser tier heroes. Although I'm putting Cyborg into that thing, even though he's in Justice League as well. But it's the leader of the group is Robin, and he's basically upset that they're not seen as real heroes, and he's basically told the only way that you're ever going to get taken seriously as a hero is if you have your own movie made about you. So it's the sort of thing where they go head off to Hollywood to try and get a superhero movie made for him, and it's got some really clever jokes just about like you say, the superhero fatigue, the whole sort of the tropes of the genre, and I mean, there's some excellent sort of sight gags and stuff like this, and that it's got like movie posters for stuff like Jonah Rex, a dinosaur version of Jonah Hex, and like I think I saw one which was a poster for What's Up Doc, starring Doc Manhattan from Watchmen, so that's a canon in that universe as well, along with a Up and Atom poster, which was either a reference to this small superhero called the Atom, but I also thought it was a double reference in referencing Radioactive Man from The Simpsons.
That's exactly what I was
Rainier
thinking.
Wolfcastle had the terrible thing that he couldn't say up and at them and just said up and at them many, many times, which is still one of my favourite Simpsons episodes, I think.
Yeah, it's a class.
But what made this one stand out for me was the fact that it was a DC movie which was referencing Marvel quite heavily, in that Deathstroke, the main villain, was referred to as Deadpool. They were referred to as stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy, and they even managed to wrangle Stan Lee in for a cameo as well, until the point when someone whispers in his ear that it's a DC movie and he trundles off. But yeah, no, I thought it was really funny, and I mean, there's some big names in there. Nicolas Cage finally gets to play Superman on the big screen, so that's something. And I think Will Arnett as Deathstroke is actually the first, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe he's the first person to ever play Batman and one of the villains on the big screen.
I would agree with that. I think, I would say that was it as well. Yeah, I was watching that thing, and I had my mind was kind of ticking over, and I was like, no, definitely the first.
Yeah, because I mean, I was like, because I think I didn't know much about the movie. I didn't even know who was in it. I was like, I recognise that voice. Who is it? Who's it? I couldn't figure it out until I saw the end credits. At which point I then found out that Greg Davis from the In-Betweeners and other British comedies was the inflatable man at the beginning, because I knew I recognised that voice as well. So there you go. I was wondering if that was
a good cast.
Is that one that they do with all these animated films at the moment, where minor British celebrities seem to take on certain roles that are then played by minor American celebrities, just to have something to fit into the audience demographic or something? I don't know, because actually that's what I also watched this week. I've suddenly remembered I also watched Hotel Transylvania 3.
God, you're scraping the barrel as well.
Well, that was the only thing that fitted in on Wednesday night before the Ant-Man double bill for me to watch, so that's what I had to do, and so that's what I did, and also managed to catch so that, and yeah, I had Alison Hammond, who for US fans probably aren't aware, but she was in Big Brother over here, and then also she's most famous probably for the Blade Runner interview where she manages to get Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford cracking up as well.
Yeah, Hotel Transylvania 3 was... I've not seen any of the other ones, but I have seen the trailer for that numerous times, and I was like, oh my god, that film just looks so boring and bland, and, you know, they're on a cruise, oh, wonderful. You know, I'm glad someone went to see it anyway.
Well, I'll have to admit that the only reason I went to see it was because it fit in with the times, and I have to admit that I did need to Google and Wikipedia the first two films' plot lines to remember what was happening. I don't think I've actually even seen the second one. I think I probably saw the first one in one of those years where I was just trying to review every single film that I could possibly try and see. But I've become a bit more selective these days. So.
And married as well.
Exactly, yeah. You get a lot less time and have to be much more selective. Although, why did you not get dragged along to Mamma Mia?
Well, because I'd already seen Mamma Mia.
Oh, you'd already seen it.
Yeah, and so my girlfriend was like, we were kind of trying to organise a schedule. So I went to see Teen Titans Go while she went to see Mamma Mia. She was annoyed at me for going previously while she was on vacation because she thought we'd both agreed to go see it, which wasn't my recollection of the incident. But then we did reunite and we went to see Hearts Beat Loud, which we will talk about more in depth in a couple of weeks' time once you finally get the chance to see it. But I like you, did see a movie before Ant-Man as well. I didn't go to the double bill because I didn't want to go to 4DX, but I saw Hotel Artemis, which you'd seen the previous week, which I thought was fine. You know, it's got a good cast, but it just sort of, you know, it just was like, oh, okay, this is fine. You know, some good moments, and you know, it feels like a really cheap film, and I'm surprised they've got some big names in it. So I imagine it was just the opportunity to work with the writer director. So yeah, I thought it was okay, nothing particularly special.
Yeah, no, it's a film which is, you know, it's absolutely fine, sort of evening entertainment. It's, you know, sort of something for more suited for like Netflix, or sort of hark back to the sort of 80s and 90s action films. But I think it does feel at times like it is a sort of almost like a world building film, that it feels very similar to the sort of rules and regulations that you find in the John Wick films. So in that respect, that's what it kind of feels like. And yes, I mean, I think I gave it 3 out of 5 and then reviewed it for my blog under the guise of like a TripAdvisor review of it.
I think when I first saw the trailer, I thought, oh well, it's very much a John Wick style movie, and it kind of suffers by that comparison, I think. And yeah, it was just, you know, kind of unremarkable. It was a sort of movie you could imagine maybe on the Sci-Fi Channel one time. You know, I'm not implying it's that bad, but you can imagine being on that sort of channel and going, oh, I'll give it a watch. Jodie Foster's in it, yeah, sure. Oh, Zachary Quinto, okay. Jeff Goldblum, all these people are in it, and it just seems like rather odd.
Yeah, it's an odd film, but I thought Jodie Foster was actually very good in it, and a reminder that of how good she is, and it's a shame that she doesn't really do that many films anymore. I mean, I think the previous one that she was in was like Elysium, which was probably like 3 or 4 years ago now. So it'd be nice to see her, you know, on the big screen more often.
Yeah, it seems that she's sort of fallen into directing more, which is, you know, either a sign that this is something that she's pursuing, or just perhaps that there aren't roles for older women like her, no matter how talented she is. So I'm not too sure what the reasoning behind it is. I just hope it's for the first option, personally.
Yeah.
I did see also one other movie, and I watched it on Sky Cinema, and this is a perfect segue into our first small topic of today. But I watched a movie I've been looking forward to for a little while, but it never got a cinema release here. It's called Please Stand By Me. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I am not, no.
It's on Sky Cinema at the moment, and it stars Dakota Fanning as a 21-year-old autistic girl that lives her life by some very serious principles of how she conducts herself, how she prepares for each day. You know, she's very strict, and every night at 7 p.m. she always watches Star Trek. So one day it's announced that for the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, they're going to be doing a script writing competition where fans can submit their own script, and the winner will be made into a film of some capacity. So this autistic girl takes a brave step into the unknown to hand deliver her script to Paramount Studios. And, you know, while it's not the most remarkable movie in the world, I think it's people always talk about representation, and it's you know, my line of work is working with individuals with autism, and I don't think there's been enough kind of shown in films. Sometimes it's shown in sort of a humorous way, for example, but this was just a lead character that has autism, that has a passion for Star Trek, and, you know, a mission in her heart. And I think it's just a lovely wee film, and one, if you've got Sky Cinema, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at it now on IMDb, The Wonders of Modern Technology, and it's got an impressive cast. It's got Toni Collette in there, and Alice Eve, who was also in one of the Star Wars.
Yeah, she was in Star Trek Into Darkness, notoriously stripped down to her underwear for the most pointless scene in cinema history.
Indeed, yes. Did they even? I'm sure there was something that when that trailer came out, they tried to say that, oh no, don't worry, it'll make sense when you see the final film, but I don't think it did.
No, it makes no sense. But that ties in nicely to obviously for Star Trek fans like myself and several people, it seems, on the Nerd Party, Nerd Nuptial, as we spoke, have just released an episode today talking about it, and SETI Alpha 3 will be doing one later in the week. Obviously, Alec Kurtzman and Patrick Stewart announced at the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas that the rumour that was reported in Variety a few weeks ago is true, that there is going to be a Star Trek series with Captain Picard, or Patrick Stewart and as Captain Picard again, returning. So no episodes have been written yet, but it is officially going to happen. And to say I'm excited is an understatement. When I obviously heard the rumour, I was particularly excited, and I think with this it can only be a positive thing. I think the CBS app that's going to be there, obviously Star Trek Discovery is there, you can access all the backlog of Star Trek shows. Obviously we can do that here, Netflix here, but it's like the rest of the app is all your NCIS and all your other CBS shows that probably people's dads like to watch and people's mums or whatever, if they're staying at home that day, like to watch. But it feels like this is what it should be, the potential of this world is. And I think like Star Trek can be so many different things. It can be what Star Wars is failing to do, that you can now make short form TV series, as they've kind of talked about. They're going to make an animated series. They're going to do a series about, well, what is Captain Picard doing 20 years after we last saw him in Star Trek Nemesis. It's really particularly exciting to see that this world is opening up. It's what Star Wars has kind of done well for the past decade or so, making all these different platform shows, cartoons, TV, movies. You've got a live action TV series. All these different things are coming along, and Star Trek's always been behind the times in that respect. So it feels like an exciting times ahead, and I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And yeah, I'm really excited. Patrick Stewart is like the MVP of the Star Trek franchise, and to have him coming back is just amazing. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do. I hope it's not a spaceship based show. I want to see him perhaps based on Earth. I want to see him being the character that we need for our times at the moment. He's the opposite of everything that people like Trump and those kind of politics represent. So I'm particularly excited and very hopeful, but I'm curious as yourself, as not really a kind of Star Trek fan as I would think, what was your take on the news, or did it even register?
It did register. I mean, yeah, no, I'm not a huge Star Trek fan, and my Star Wars love did take a hit during the prequels and stuff. I mean, if you want to talk for 3 hours about Blade Runner, absolutely, yes, that's me. Absolutely, I can do that. If they ever announce, Blade Runner spin-offs, then yes, I'm your guy. But I did. I mean, Next Generation was my Star Trek. That's the one that I probably was introduced to first, I think, watching it on BBC Two around about 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, on a day that Batman clearly wasn't on. But I mean, I'd watched, like, I remember the original movies. I don't think I ever really watched like Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and that. But Next Generation was the one that I sort of grew up with and was my favourite. Picard was fantastic in that. I mean, I think my favourite episode is still the time loop one where Frasier turns up at the end. I'm a sucker for a time loop one, but I have got into Discovery actually recently. I did finally watch that, and I really like that. So I'm interested to see the next series of that and see where that goes. But
how far into Discovery are you at the moment?
No, I've completed the first series. So
oh, fantastic!
Yeah, so no, I really, really liked it and liked the way they handled it. And there was a time loop episode in that as well. So
yeah, it's a Star Trek tradition. I can give you a playlist of episodes, times they've done that, because as you can imagine, it's plenty.
Yeah, but I was thinking earlier today about what potentially they could do with it, and I did kind of come up with a potential story. I'll pitch it to you. You can see if it's going to work anyway. So Picard. Yeah, he's on Earth, living out in retirement because he was dishonorably discharged after an accident during a battle that caused the death of many crew members of the Enterprise. So he's living his days, just sitting around drinking tea, Earl Grey, hot. When a young, well, slightly older, I guess these days, Wesley Crusher comes along. So we get the return of Will Wheaton, who needs Picard's help. Because he's found a child who was previously assimilated with the Borg, and that child is the key to defeating them, and he needs Picard's help in transferring that child to safety to the final remnants of the Federation, and so they have to go off and do this. And I'm going to call it Old Man Picard, and basically do a role reversal on Logan, and basically have Patrick Stewart in the Hugh Jackman role and Will Wheaton in the other role. How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Yeah, no, I think everyone's probably got the Old Man Picard one in their head. Actually, if you'd watched Star Trek Voyager, you would know that the Borg were destroyed at the end in Endgame. But that's an aside.
Really? Really, this is science fiction. No one's ever. Did you see all the bodies? Did you see all the bodies?
No, I did see a lot of green
then
explosions.
They're still there.
And I'm kind of hoping for something that taps into Logan. Like, I have this idea that they saw Logan, like Alex Kurtzman, the folk at CBS, and thought, holy hell, that guy was just brilliant there. And we could still call upon him. We could make a Star Trek series around something like that. I'd like to maybe see something like a kind of Star Trek West Wing style thing with Picard perhaps as like an ambassador, Federation president, something like that. That's kind of what I'm kind of hopeful in mind for. I'm curious to see where they'll go. I think there will be opportunities for cameos, but this is the first time since like 2001 that Star Trek will be back in the future. Everything since then, you had Enterprise, Star Trek Discovery, the Kelvin timeline movies, they've all been in the past of Star Trek. And this 20 years does time in with when the Romulan Empire was destroyed and the J.J. Abrams movie, which kickstarted the whole time travel nonsense, really. So I'm really excited to see where they go, and colour me very hyped and very excited for this news.
I know, and I think one of the things is because they're tying it in, I guess, with the fact that it's been about 20 years since the Next Generation, so there's a reason why he's looking a little bit older, although it has to be said that Patrick Stewart has not aged that much in the last sort of 20 years. He still looks pretty good, although they could always... he could even maybe do his own flashbacks without the use of... because there was some dodgy CGI in... was it X-Men The Last Stand, where they kind of de-aged them? But
yes, that's right, yeah.
That's one thing I'll probably talk about in a couple of minutes, so I'll leave that one there. But I'm excited to see what they do, and if it's anything as good as Discovery, then I'll definitely be watching and potentially call myself a full-on Trekkie from now on.
Absolutely, you'll be guesting on SETI Alpha 3 when they do their Star Trek Discovery Season 2 watch, and obviously we'll be getting mini episodes as well. One of them's going to be Rainn Wilson has written it as well and will be starring in it, so obviously we'll see him next week in the Meg, which I'm particularly excied for.
Is that going to be next week's big review then?
We'll no doubt talk on it. I don't know if we could have a big discussion about the Meg, but it will be done.
It's clearly going to be like the Oscar winner next year. I mean, of course, it's the Staith versus a giant shark. Of course, that is. You're not going to find a better film this year, I don't think.
See, that's like an upmarket Sci-Fi Channel movie. I know my girlfriend went to me the other day like, I really want to see that movie, and I was like, she wants to see it, and this is her first year with a cinema pass, and I feel like she's now officially in that mindset that you'll see nonsense like that and think that's not a waste of time. I will go see that because it looks daft, and what else am I going to do instead?
Yeah, I mean, there's as far as I can see, there's no weather-related incidents in this film, so it's clearly going for a different market to the Sharknado films. But it's daft. It's it's the kind of summer thing that you don't want something too serious. You just want to have a laugh, good Friday night film, and I think it will fit the bill.
Absolutely. So at long last week we finally both caught Ant-Man and the Wasp, long after America and much of the world, and I think we both had our Twitter feeds muted for quite a while to I don't know if any spoilers managed to break through your net, but what was your kind of...
I was actually surprised at how well that Twitter function actually worked. I mean, Twitter comes in for a lot of criticism these days, but the mute function worked surprisingly well.
Exactly, like the Nazis can get through, all the racist conspiracies, but an Ant-Man and the Wasp spoiler did not get through. So, things are on the up.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as well, what was your opening night experience like, and how did you go see the film? We had a few different options here in the UK of seeing it, some somewhat frustrating options, but how did you see it, and what was that opening night like?
Well, I went to see it on the double bill in the end. Normally, I would prefer to see a film in 2D, but this was a 4DX double bill, and apparently, for some reason, according to Cineworld, it was the preferred format from the exhibitor that they wanted the double bill to only be shown in 3D 4DX. So I had to put up with that. I had to put up with my chair shaking back and forth a bit and having to watch it in 3D. But, it was fun to see it, the original again. It was a fairly busy audience. It was one that was probably about half full, that then got to about 3/4 full for the Ant-Man and the Wasp. It seems like several people booked their ticket but then decided just to show up at midnight, and maybe they just rewatched the other one originally, and they might have done their Infinity War rewatch and decided they didn't want to watch Ant-Man again so soon. But it was, it moves from side to side. I think it worked well during the quantum realm scenes, but other than that, I didn't think there was any real need for the 4DX, and even probably for the 3D as well. I thought it was slightly redundant, as I think we're finding for most films these days. It tends to be, certainly now looking at the times and stuff, the majority of the screenings at my cinema are 2D with the odd 3D show rather than the other way around. But my anticipation was high. But I thought I really enjoyed it, and I came out buzzing for the next one. And I thought it was funny, I thought it built on the characters, and I thought it was important, and I thought they went the right way with having a sort of smaller stakes sort of storyline. But given the effects of Infinity War and stuff, I think they pitched it perfectly, I thought. What about yourself?
Yeah, I had the same. I only had the choice of if I wanted to do the double bill of seeing it in 4DX, which I refused. So I went to see it in IMAX instead. I saw Hotel Artemis like at 10 to 9, so I would have a sort of movie to kind of run into. And if I stayed at home, I might not think, I'll kind of go along and see it, or maybe I'll just stay at home. I don't know. But if I was at the cinema, I was definitely going to go along and see it. And I went to see it in IMAX, and it was maybe like a quarter full. It was mostly sort of filled down the middle to the halfway, so there wasn't a huge crowd there. And I don't know how many people were sort of in the 4DX. There was people mulling around, but there wasn't a kind of particularly buzz really kind of for that film, which is okay really, because it's this type of movie. It wasn't one that sort of seems like, yeah, you've got to go see it at midnight or you'll be behind in the conversation, or you could have risk of spoilers. It doesn't feel like that type of film which drives something like, say, Infinity War to kind of get everyone racing into the cinemas. And I enjoyed it okay enough, really. I was maybe a bit negative at first. I did see it a second time with my girlfriend who wanted to see it at the weekend, and I did enjoy it a little bit better. I just found it to be, there was just nothing that kind of stuck out for me as much as the first one in a way, and I was maybe conscious of how much of an influence Edgar Wright had perhaps with the first one. That obviously we've discussed his history before, that he got booted off the film, he walked away from the film, but they had done obviously a huge amount of work on the script, him and Cornballs himself, Joe Cornish, and they've obviously gone into that movie kind of preparing it for a long time. It had been talked about as being a phase 1 movie originally, so I can imagine there was a lot of prep done, and someone like the director's name just has completely escaped me, but something that he can build upon, Peyton Reed, that he can build upon and go with this movie. And then with the second one, it's sort of them all on their own. You have like these 5 script writers, and one of them is obviously Paul Rudd as well, and there was none of this sort of action scenes or anything felt particularly memorable, or they didn't kind of jump off the screen, and some of the gags were fine. There was some nice moments there, but there was nothing about this film that felt particularly memorable, and nothing where I was thinking, I need to watch that one again. And I liked that it was small and sort of inconsequential. It was just a kind of couple of days adventure with Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it just felt, I was just, maybe, I don't think I was overhyped for it, but I just felt like it was a movie I was like, that's okay. and then kind of left it there, and it kind of ranks pretty low down on my sort of Marvel list for that kind of vibe. There's not much I think about going, oh, it had that really good moment, whereas something like Iron Man 2, not the biggest fan in the world, but boy do I love that Sam Rockwell's in it and he's really good. Just little things like that. I just didn't feel this film packed a punch in much of the ways personally.
Well, no, I mean, I thought for me, I mean, there was one moment which I think is one of my sort of favorite Marvel moments, and that's the moment when Paul Rudd gets taken over by the spirit of the Wasp, the original Wasp, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and is interacting with Hank and Hope as the Wasp, and it's a moment which could have gone like really horribly wrong, but I think Rudd sort of plays it just pitch perfect, that it sells it, and that it could have been a bit too weird and maybe borderline creepy, but I think it just works. It's really, really funny and really quite emotional at the same time. For me, I mean, I thought some of the action scenes were actually really good. I like the way that they had taken the sort of shrinking and growing things during the hand-to-hand combats, but then sort of taken it out towards now to involve car chases and stuff like that. And I mean, I laughed a lot during this film. I thought it was really funny, and I actually had started laughing probably about 30 seconds before a gag actually happened, but it was when Luis was given the truth serum, and then you can tell that Walton Goggins' Sonny Birch is going to ask him a question, and you just know exactly at that moment what the answer is going to be. And I just thought it is slightly a recycled gag from the first film, but I just thought it worked really, really well, and I was laughing a lot during that. But I thought for me it was what also is great, and I've mentioned this before potentially, but whoever does the de-aging for Marvel needs a pay rise, because some of that work is absolutely sensational. You cannot tell that these guys are older, and it's like you think, wow, how great does Michelle Pfeiffer look? But then you see her later on in the film and realise, actually, wow, she actually still looks great for that age. But what did you think of Michelle Pfeiffer's involvement in the film? Did you think she made a big impact? Or?
Yeah, they certainly have doubled down or tripled down really on the de-aging process, and it looks really good still. I mean, I watched it in IMAX, so it wasn't maybe the strongest. You're really seeing it kind of blown up in front of you. But I thought on the 2D screening I saw on Saturday, it stood up really, really well. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne in particular looks excellent. Michael Douglas just looks a little kind of on the fake side, but Michelle Pfeiffer looks awesome. I thought she was good in that sort of the little bit that she got to do. I'm hopeful that she'll get more to do in kind of the third part, I would hope and I would expect, to be honest. The idea that Ant-Man and the Wasp isn't just the Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. We also have the other Ant-Man and the Wasp as well, so I thought that was quite good. So yeah, it's been good to see sort of Michelle Pfeiffer appearing in films again. Really, obviously we got her in Mother last year, where she was just awesome. In this, I've never really seen her sort of in this kind of role where she is explaining technical jargon and kind of that coming out of that comments, and she was sort of her mystical spiritual side. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. That it's good that they've introduced her now, but I would really hope and probably expect that there'll be more of her in the future. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I thought she was very good. She left me wanting to have seen more of her in the film, which is always a good sign. But I think it's. I've already mentioned a few things, so this is it's spoiler territory. But it's been out in the US for a month, so I think we're probably okay.
Yeah,
talking about spoilers. But I think while this film was very low stakes and potentially slightly inconsequential, and I like the way that the villains. I say villains. I'm doing inverted commas here because they're not traditional villains. Ghost, when you discover the backstory, could be seen as just a tortured soul, and we've got yet another arms dealer in the Marvel universe. But I think following on from Thanos, it was right that they didn't have like a big bad, and instead these people are more obstacles in the longer goal of setting up this inner space style quantum tunnel to get into the quantum realm again. But I really feel that this quantum realm is going to be very important in Avengers 4, potentially Avengers Endgame, depending on what they finally go with the title. But because it was a line which I nearly missed in the end credit sequence, where she says, "Be careful to not slip into a time vortex," and I think it's been hinted at already that time travel will be required in order to defeat Thanos. And I mean, I spoke about how I'd seen a photo of Ant-Man on set with the original Avengers, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And I think Ant-Man's potentially got a huge role to play in the next one. But I don't know about you, but I was actually slightly surprised at how that scene ended, because I wasn't expecting the casualty number to have been so high, so to speak.
Yeah, I thought the Wasp would have survived personally. But yeah, I kind of, that was the one thing I sort of knew was coming, was that one of the post-credit scenes was the how it we will tie into Infinity War, which I expected anyway, so I wasn't really bothered about. But it's just like that nice little scene, and believe it or not, like, I know I keep banging on about it, I need to get on the show. My girlfriend had forgotten like about that kind of ending, and when it happened and you see the ash, she was like, oh no, and then it just all came flooding back in the thoughts of Spider-Man being turned to ash. And I think things like that make me happy, because you forget what it's like for the normal person that goes to see these movies, that will go see them, doesn't maybe think about them much ever between the films, and then go see them and then kind of get surprised about that, whereas we kind of go in going, right, oh, that's going to happen, oh yeah, that's a pretty interesting way of doing it. But like the fact that it provoked that emotional reaction, I was like, oh, that's awesome, that's so cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought at one point they were going to like be really cruel, and probably like just as Michelle Pfeiffer comes out of the quantum tunnel and is about to say something and reunite with Evangeline Lilly, I was expecting her to turn to ash then and be like, oh, come on. And then she'd have to go a whole other movie before she's actually able to reunite with her mother. But no, I thought it was good that the way they wrapped it up. Although, I mean, yet again, people were leaving in my screening after the first post-credits scene, and you're going, what? There's always a second one, what the hell are you doing? Although I am very... this is probably... I would rank this as the worst final post-credit scene in the MCU. Mainly, basically, because it was a gag which had been shown in the trailer, and therefore spoiled completely. I don't know if you felt the same, or...
I like the final closing scene with the little drum roll and stuff. It just made me kind of laugh, and I think maybe I'm reading into it too much, but it was nice watching that sort of a little scene where the ants survived the whole, poofing and ash thing, and kind of thinking like, answer the debate of people like, were animals killed and such like, and I think the Russos did say some animals were killed, or I'm not too sure on that, but it was like nice that like we get to kind of, maybe it's winking at that kind of discussion and debate that's been having since Ant-Man. Maybe that's just me though.
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, they did have like the emergency broadcast sort of system thing up on the TV just before the show. I'm not sure if they had named that particular ant again, if it was along the lines of Anthony, or no, there was one that was called Antonio Banderas. I like all those different names, but I'm not sure if that one had a name. But I was just disappointed because that shot was in one of the trailers and therefore spoiled slightly. Although I'm sure I did read recently that Peyton Reed had actually reached out to Rick Moranis for a cameo in one of these films to potentially tie into the same universe as Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which would have been amazing. But I mean, because that's a huge movie with relation to this, and also the fact that these people befriend one of the giant ants and stuff like that. So I thought that would have been a nice way to tie it all in. But maybe for the third one he'll come back. So.
The one thing that kind of this almost discussion for me sort of sums up is that the fact that the movie debate and discussion with Ant-Man is somewhat telling, that most people are discussing the post-credit scenes and how it all ties in, and whether the film was, if it was that good, there would be like so many other things to talk about first, or would naturally come to mind. And it seems sort of telling that maybe that movie isn't kind of that remarkable in a way. Maybe that's just my interpretation of it.
Yeah, no, I think the thing with the Ant-Man films is they've both come out after the Avengers movies. So it's almost like a sort of palate cleanser to the all-you-can-eat Avengers buffet that you've been at. So they're never going to be, earth-shattering, or, they're going to rip up the MCU timeline and space-time continuum sort of thing. They're just a nice, fun... I think they are possibly almost aimed at a more family audience, sort of tying into that sort of almost Honey, I Shrunk the Kids sort of. This is a more sort of family-friendly, fun sort of thing with the whole sort of father-daughter storyline as well. It sort of plays into that, I think. Although, once again, Judy Greer, nothing to do in a big Hollywood movie. So our fingers are now crossed for Halloween. Will she get to do something in that? I can only hope.
Yeah,
and Bobby Cannavale just seemed to be
Judy
there to hug people. So
yeah, which is it's a good gig if you can get it.
Yeah, but but I mean, it was a nice, fun, watch. Will it rank near the top of any of my Marvels? Probably not. I think I preferred it to the original. I just like the developing relationship between Scott and Hope, and I think Evangeline Lilly is great in the role, and I think she's fantastic, and hopefully she will get something to do in Avengers, but I guess it depends what form that will take, because is she in the Soul Stone now with everyone else? If that's where everyone is, I don't know. Have they confirmed that? I mean, I'm waiting for. I think it's a month before we get the Blu-ray and DVD of Infinity War, but
yeah, September 3rd.
But for me, one of the most frustrating things at the moment is, I don't know if you feel the same way, but this is just my personal opinion. It's the people who, from certain websites and stuff, who are basically taking every individual line of dialogue from Anthony and Joe Russo's commentaries over the film and then just turning that into an individual article. So every scene, they're basically running blah, blah, blah. They're basically over-explaining the such a thing. It's like, oh, what was the meaning behind this? The directors tell on. It's like, no, well, they're just commenting on their own movie and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, we don't need to know. We'll find out for ourselves when we read it. We've got our own opinions. We don't need it all spelled out for us.
Yeah, I mean, that just sums up the typical nature of film articles and news these days. It's like I can't remember, I think it's One Perfect Shot. They do a really good article every for a lot of movies. It's like 30 things from this audio commentary. It can be the Royal Tenenbaums, it could be Avengers, something like that, where it just takes some quotes, some examples of things they've said, gives you a bit of extra insight, and it condenses it all into a page, and it's very clear what you're reading. Whereas these articles where they're taking a 3-hour movie and milking it for all of this and such, it's just, I'm sick of stuff like that. I just, it bores me. I'm not going to click on it.
Yeah, no, it's the people who also decide to analyze a trailer shot by shot and try and extrapolate all this information and stuff. It's like, you're going to ruin it for yourselves, because I mean, that's apparently one of the things that pissed people off about The Last Jedi, was they'd spent 2 years over analyzing every single casting decision and every single trailer to the point where they had a story in their head of where the film was going to go, and when it doesn't go that way, they get in a huff and a tizzy and decide to throw their toys out the pram.
That's why, with movies, before they're coming out, I try not to get too much into talking about them, or I try and avoid the trailers if possible, or go in without kind of knowing much. It almost sometimes, I think these movies are on a hiding to nothing, that usually when I've seen a Marvel movie or a large movie, I've come out of it the first time going thinking, yeah, that was pretty good, or yeah, I enjoyed that. And then sometimes a second one, once I've taken away the pressure and all the thoughts about what little, even though I'm not deeply analysing these things to death, I kind of come out of it thinking oh, okay, yeah, I'm settled with this movie now. Whereas with an independent film where I've maybe seen the trailer once, not heard much about it, or heard some good buzz, I go into something like that and I'm thinking, wow, that was amazing, that was one of my favourite films of the year. That's a buzz I get that I maybe don't get with the bigger movies, and it's not due to the quality or preferring one over the other. It's just I'm more settled into going into that movie, and I'm not sort of, weighed down by expectation, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. You're more likely to find, or maybe be surprised with these smaller independent films, because you don't know every single thing that has gone into the production of it before you go and see it. So, although, we were both probably pleasantly surprised by Teen Titans this week because we'd managed to go into it with basically no real expectations. But something like Hereditary, for example, was a genuine sort of word of mouth hit. And by the time it had come over here, I'd maybe seen the trailer once or twice, but that trailer did a very good job of showing you a story of where you think it's going, but it actually isn't that story. And therefore I was sort of blown away with just how good it was. And yeah, it's those sort of word of mouth sort of buzz sort of hits that's where the surprise is and the real joy is. Although saying that, there's some, I was overwhelmed with joy when The Force Awakens came on, because at the end of the film I realised, it was actually good. And, seeing old characters again who you hadn't seen and whatever, just although it didn't have the 20th Century Fox fanfare over it, but you get, the Star Wars theme and stuff, that kind of thing still can cause an emotional reaction for me in a cinema screen, whereas, your standard carbon copy blockbusters, don't. Although Mission Impossible, I probably would watch that again, but for me, first time seeing it, I was just sort of blown away. Even though I'd seen bits of all the stunts and stuff like that, to see it all sort of come together, especially now having listened to other podcasts and read tons of stories about how they didn't have a script, and it really sounded like he was making it up day to day, and to come up with a film that good. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone though, because I'm sure there would be more misses than hits with that kind of approach to it though.
Yeah, most definitely. I think a lot of people have tried that before, and it's been a hiding to nothing. I think with the kind of the film stuff and everything like that, hopefully we can sort of and I think it kind of worked with us. We kind of went into Ant-Man somewhat hyped up, but without sort of the buzz or over analysing or hearing all these different things. So I think it was quite nice in that respect that you could go see a big blockbuster movie like this a month after the rest of the world had seen it and kind of still be surprised and get something out of it. I think too often these things are ruined. I think it all depends on maybe the conversation around the movie. If The Last Jedi had come out a month later here, I think it would have been completely ruined in terms of the discourse and everything surrounding it. Where something like Ant-Man, it maybe just does that sum it up a little bit as well. It's a movie that people are like, yeah, that was nice, and yeah, I'd recommend it or check it out, or maybe see it on DVD. It didn't have that generation of conversation where it starts spilling into tweets and news articles that about directors feuding and stuff like that. I think with this film, I was like, well, if people dislike it, I can understand that, and if people like it, I'm not going to argue against them. It's just a sort of inconsequential movie to me, and that's fine. And it's nice to have a summer release perhaps where it has that response. If it's that's fine, it's nice that people aren't tearing down each other over this film and the different opinions surrounding it. Yeah,
absolutely. But if Disney and Marvel attempt to try and pull a month later for Avenger Endgame, then there will be hell to pay, because that's a film which definitely needs to be released worldwide at the exact same time, or in the UK a couple of days before. I don't mind that, but when it's the other way around, I don't like it.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, have you got any kind of final thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Not really. I think it kind of says it all that, when we rejoined there's a spoiler podcast chat on the Nerd Party sort of app that we use, and by the time we'd actually watched Ant-Man and gone in, it had already been changed over to Mission Impossible for a couple of weeks, I think. So that's how little chat there actually was about Ant-Man. But I thought it was funny, and I enjoyed myself, and I still love the characters, and I'd be interested to see where they go next. But it was no Infinity War anyway.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, I suppose we've had a couple of weeks of big movie chat, so it'll be interesting to see what we'll discuss next. I'm sure we'll discuss that over our group chat about what our next filibuster episode will be.
Yeah, I think that was probably the last real big blockbuster of the summer, I think. And just going actually back to something that we started at the thing about these midnight screenings. when I saw Infinity War, and it was probably the same with you, I think it was on around about 7 or 8 screens at a multiplex, and there was thousands of people there. I think these things are going to be very rare from now on, because Mission Impossible got a midnight release, and as far as I was there, it was very quiet. Jurassic World was dead when I went to see it. Solo was also dead. I think we're going to be finding that it's not financially viable for a lot of these cinemas to put them on. So I think, other than, huge Marvel films and Star Wars ones, I think there'll be less of these midnight screenings going forward. I don't know if it's the same in Edinburgh or whatever, but certainly in Aberdeen there just doesn't seem to be the market anymore for it.
I think there's definitely a mixed bag. I'd like it to maybe go the way that America goes, where it's like 7 p.m. previews. Like, that would be a good way to go around it, starting at like 7 p.m. the night before, and like that gets you up and going. I've always loved that about America and how they do these films, so I would like us to maybe adopt that more, as opposed to being strictly like midnight embargoes or something like that. It'll get more of an audience in, and they did that for Spectre. It started at 7 p.m. at night to time in with the premiere down in London, so that's something I'd maybe like to see. But I agree, some of them recently I've either not bothered to go myself. I'll go to the Star Wars one, I'll go to a big Marvel movie for the most part. So I'm hopeful. And it seems odd, like Thor Ragnarok never got a midnight release here. Black Panther never got a midnight release here. Ant-Man did. So it's really quite erratic what they're giving us in terms of midnight movies. So who knows?
But I think what we need to look at is that I think that would certainly work. Maybe 7 p.m. thing, but if they did double bills, but say started the first one at 6 and then you had your new release about 9, that would probably work. But I think, it's just, unless it's a film where I'm terrified that there's going to be spoilers on in the morning while I'm counting say I've got a film booked at 5 p.m. and I'm going to have the film ruin me before then, I would definitely go and see it at midnight. Beyond then, I think I'm probably going to scale back on that. If anything, I'm just getting a bit older and I like my sleep. So
and it's like, I'll see it the next day.
Yeah, exactly, there's sometimes, you just got to listen to your body and decide, I can wait a few hours, it's fine.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things, like, it's not going to get, an Ant-Man and the Wasp isn't going to get spoiled in 12 hours between it coming out at midnight and seeing it in the afternoon or whatever after work. So I'm sure we can enjoy sleep a bit more.
Absolutely.
So that brings an end to sort of probably the summer season, really, for the most part. There's still loads more movies to come this year, and a lot ahead to look forward to. So Dallas, if people wanted to read your TripAdvisor review of Hotel Artemis and such, like, where can people kind of find you online and read your work?
They can find me on Twitter at champcelluloid, and my blog is championshipcelluloid.blogspot.com. And I'm glad to say that my tweet from May turned out to be correct, and that Mission Impossible Fallout was indeed the best film of the summer. Is that the same for you, or did you have a different top pick for the summer blockbusters?
I'm not too sure. I'll have to have a wee think about that. Like, it probably is the best movie of the summer. Yeah, that and Infinity War for the blockbuster movies anyway, that's for sure. But it's been a pretty rubbish summer for the most part anyway,
well,
I think.
Actually,
but,
Infinity War was April, that's not really summer, that's still spring.
Yes, I know. I know. So Mission Impossible is the best one of the summer. But and if people wanted to kick me for thinking May is part of summer, which I personally think the summer blockbuster movie season is now May till well, actually we got it in April, didn't we? Infinity
we did
War.
Get it in April. So
oh my word! Well, I suppose with this heatwave we've got, I can be forgiven. But people can find me on Twitter at Lee_Nostromo, and you can find obviously the show at Join Nerd Party, at the Nerd Party on Facebook, at the Nerd Party on Twitter, on Instagram, and we'll have a few extra episodes kind of throughout the summer with some interviews from the Fringe Festival, some geeky shows are going to be on, and I've got some interviews lined up, so I won't jinx any names until we've got it all probably recorded, but look out for some extra bonus episodes through August. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll talk with you again soon. Bye.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.